The world of AI is constantly changing, and in this video, we're going to be deep diving Claude Code subagents on how you can become more efficient as a business owner and an entrepreneur by building these agents out to complete tasks for you. So let's get into the video. All right, Brett. So you did a great presentation the other day in one of the groups, and I wanted to bring you on the podcast because you did a really good job explaining what Claude Code is, what it does, and how we should get started. So I kind of want to just bring in a lot of the beginners up to speed as like what makes Claude Code different than some of these other, things like Lovable and Bolt. Like, why should people make the change to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It doesn't have to be Claude Code. Let's start with that. I personally love Claude Code. I've been using it a lot. I started off using Cursor. Um, no real complaints there. Just wanted to check out Claude Code because I kept seeing a lot of things about it on social media, mostly on X. And the more I dug into it, the more I realized how extensible it is. And it's not the most user-friendly out of the gate. So I would say that's probably the biggest barrier for anybody who's a beginner in this space is Cursor is going to give you an interface. You're used to seeing an interface with, file, new window, etc. And it kind of not handholds, but it sort of like gives you more controls that you can see. Whereas Claude Code is like, hey, here's a flashing cursor on a terminal and you're kind of on your own to figure it out. Now, that being said, I think the internet is going to give you more than ample resources if you're willing to go look for it. And that's kind of where it hit the sweet spot for me was I'm an explorer, I'm an experimenter. I love building stuff. I like pushing these things to see what I can get them to do, meaning the large language models in these coding environments. And so the more I dug into it, the more I was like, oh my God, like you can customize this thing to do anything. So it's almost overwhelming, right? It can be too much. Like a tool that can do anything to a new person, you're like, well, I don't know what I need it to do. So hopefully we can go through some of that today and kind of go over, again, we're going to cover a little bit. Some of the topics we'll cover are general to vibe coding or LLM coding. And obviously the use cases we'll be covering that we'll go over will be Claude Code specific, but some of the things we're talking about are just like if you are using Lovable, Replit, Bolt, something like that, and you're ready to sort of take it to that next level and graduate from the limited set of tools that they're going to offer you. I think this is just sort of help you bridge that gap and figure out, A, when do you need to make that transition? B, what's that transition going to look like, right? Like, what should you expect? Are you going to take your code base from something that's very user-friendly and just be dropped off in the desert and expected to figure it out? Maybe a little bit. So there's a little bit of an adventurous spirit required here. But I think once you get into it, you're going to really you'll start to realize like, A, you don't have to be super technical, and B, you're going to start to open up more opportunities that you didn't know were there yet and start to push your coding abilities further, faster. I think so.
For sure. So I'm a beginner. I just started the project. This is day 11, literally using Bolt built-in out our project. So for the people that are watching, if I'm a beginner, what is something I'm going to learn from you after this episode?
Yeah. So I think the number one thing I'd like to instill with beginners is just a little bit of confidence to say, we don't, a more technical user doesn't necessarily have any more answers than you have. It's just a matter of learning what to ask and learning not to be afraid to just keep putting the onus back on the LLM to figure things out for you. So if you don't know the answer to a question, it's not like you're expected to just say, hey, Claude Code, hey, Cursor, hey, tool that I'm using, how do I use you more effectively? Right? So one of the things we're going to talk about today is subagents. It's one of my favorite Claude Code features. I don't know if it's available in Cursor. I know they have background agents. I'm not sure if that's the same thing, but we'll go into how I use subagents. But the way I got started with those was I went into a code base where I'd already had a project and they just announced subagents. And I was literally like, hey, Claude, look at my code repo and suggest to me what the best subagents would be. because at the time it was brand new. I didn't know what they should be. And so you would think like, oh, I need to, the old way of thinking is I need to go find documentation. I need to find a tutorial on YouTube. I need to figure out all of the ways to make this work. And I'm saying like now we are enabled and empowered with these tools to just keep asking them to take us to the next step, improve yourself. Like it's kind of a silly paradigm, but you're going into a tool and saying like, hey, you're great, but how can you be better? And it's going to willingly answer you and improve itself. So you do need a precursory knowledge of like, okay, so what is a sub agent, right? Like you'd have to know to ask for a sub agent.
Yeah.
You don't have to know how they work. You don't have to know how to configure them. I'm sure there are power users who get in the weeds and really tweak these things. I'm in between, right? I like to know that I'm doing things more efficiently, more accurately, but I'm also not going to spend the time. I'm not going to spend, 8 hours configuring an agent. I'm too ADHD for that. I like to dive in and just get to work. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Well, you did this great kind of chart explaining it, breaking it down. So just take us through the workflow. What are we looking at here?
yeah. So basically, I gave a talk yesterday, and that's what you're referencing. And some of this will get a little bit, maybe beyond beginner, but I think the concepts are good. So we talked about subagents. So three of the things that make Claude Code very powerful are slash commands, hooks, and subagents. Um, Slash commands are basically just predefined command prompts, right? So I'm going to do something multiple times, create a commit, do a security audit, whatever. Anything you're going to do multiple times, you can make it into a slash command, use slash name of the command, and it'll execute that prompt. So you don't have to type it out or say it every time. Uh, Hooks are interesting. I haven't gotten into hooks as much yet. We won't cover that too much on this because I think that's getting to like the in-depth workflow. But essentially, anytime Claude Code has a part of the process that it's going to complete, there's a hook associated with that. And you can add additional commands or instructions at any phase. So, if you want to say, for a while, JSON input, so formatting your prompt as a JSON object was gaining some traction.
Yeah.
So you could say, hey, every time I enter a prompt, intercept it, reformat it as JSON, and then pass it on to the next step. So that would be a hook, like a user submit prompt hook. So again, I don't think we'll get too deep into that, but just know that you can really get customized workflows with this if you find the need to. So like if you were working on something and you said, hey Brett, like, it would be great if every time Claude before it did something, like for example, when mine is done completing a task, it plays an audio ding. It just goes,
Right.
"Ding." That's a really simple example of a hook. And it just means I can go to another tab and be notified when it's done. So, but my favorite hands down is subagents. And that's what we'll go over here real quick. So subagents and why they're awesome. So typically you've got Claude Code up here at the top, and it's trying to maintain a context window. And context window is just everything that it currently has an understanding of. So the larger the context window, the more things it's trying to hold in memory. So think of that like as a person, right? If you've got 20 things you're trying to juggle during the day, the likelihood of one slipping gets higher, right? So if you have a to-do list and you're taking on one item at a time, you're focused on that one item and you know that the others will be there when you're ready to get to them, right? But you're going to give your time and attention to one task. So if you give Claude Code a task and you say, hey, I want you to build me a to-do list, it's going to go out and do some research and figure out what a to-do list generally consists of. It's going to try and figure out what the front end should look like, what the back end should look like. I have API calls here. That's not always external. Sometimes it's building API calls between the front end and the back end. If you have a database, so say you're doing a to-do list and you want to store your items, now it needs to make database calls. And then I just threw mobile in here. It's like, hey, imagine you're also doing this for mobile. Now it needs to be a mobile dev, right? So it can do all of these. Claude Code or any LLM for that matter is a generalist. It can handle most tasks. But what you've got here is you've got a lot of tasks being handled by the one agent, which is going to use a lot of context, which A is going to take up more tokens for billing
Yep.
purposes.
Right.
And it's also going to be more likely to confuse the LLM and give you hallucinations or less than ideal output, right? You might have more bugs because it didn't slow down to try and find the bugs because it wasn't told specifically to go test this code, right? So
Yeah.
you've got that. Claude Code or any, again, Cursor, they have tools like Read Tool, Write. I don't know what else they have, but essentially every time you call a generalist agent, it has all tools available to it at all times, which again is kind of, you're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this and hoping that it's going to come back with a good response. And that's where you get this output.
And I think I'm there now. I've been using Jolt.new and it feels very much like that. Like it's got
Yeah.
so much in depth into the
Yep.
project that it's trying to handle. Not only does it take up a lot of token usage, but it just seems like it's kind of even forget stuff that we had just talked about. And it's like,
Absolutely. And you have to remind it, right? So you've got to be like, hey, that thing you built an hour ago, I need you to remember that you built that thing.
right.
The best is when it comes back and criticizes your code. And I'm like, no, you wrote that too. Like, I didn't write that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then it works sequentially, which is very slow, right? So it's going to go do its research phase. It's going to go figure out what it should do. And it's going to go through each of these phases in order. And so it just takes a long time when you do it that way. So they introduced subagents, and this is my diagram kind of explaining how those work. So now you've got Claude Code working as an orchestrator, right? It's the project manager. And you've given it agents, and an agent is essentially just another set of instructions for the same LLM, right? So it's still going to make calls to Sonnet, Opus, whatever. But now it's got, in this particular case, I've got 6 different agents representing specialists on a project, right? So now I've got one agent whose job is only to understand the mobile infrastructure I need. This guy's only job is to understand backend dev, front end, research, API. So all the same things we just had. But now those have each been given to one specific agent whose only job is to do that task.
Yeah.
So now they've each got specific context windows, which means they have less that they have to understand and more that they can specialize in, right? So my backend dev is only aware of its own backend tasks, and it doesn't have to worry about what the API coordinator is doing because that's not its role, right? So you've got a separation of concerns now where, and all of these pre-exist. You don't have to, like, there are now GitHub repos you can find the stuff, or like that you can ask Claude Code how you'd like it to, or, to suggest its own agents, basically. So specific context windows, specific access to tools. So for example, my research tool may need the Perplexity MCP, but my database expert does not. So the database expert is probably going to need my Supabase MCP. My mobile dev might not. So everybody gets now their own tools, which ultimately leads to us getting more accurate results. And this is the big one right here. They work in parallel, which just in this particular case, 6x's the time that it's, to reduce the time it's going to take to get your project done. So it separates, and Claude does all this for you. It separates all of the tasks out in a way that they can be done in parallel, where each agent does not need awareness into what the other agent is doing. And then it's going to ultimately give you, hopefully, I was going to say the same output, but hopefully a better version of the same output because of the split up approach. Is this making sense?
Yeah, yeah. So say I wanted to take my project that I'm currently working on another platform and switch to Claude Code, you could give it your files, and then it can like, you can ask it what are the best agents to
so
the project.
When you first open up, if it's an existing code base like you've got, like we'll use your project for example. So Alt.new is pushing things to GitHub. So you can clone GitHub on your local machine. You now have the exact same access to the code that you had through Bolt. It's like I said, it just doesn't have the guardrails anymore, which can be intimidating, but it can also be liberating once you learn how to sort of flex your muscles inside of this environment instead. So yeah, you would start with, there's a command once you're in Claude, is just /init, which is going to have Claude go through your code base, familiarize itself with it, and it's going to create a Claude markdown file which just has general information about the project and things that it finds relevant that it needs to know. And it's going to use that every time you give a command, the Claude MD file is going to be referenced. So if you want to put something in there that you're going to repeat, or something you don't want to have to type every prompt or whatever, the Claude MD file, MD means Markdown.
Yeah.
The Claude Markdown file is going to be its sort of source of truth, right? It now understands your project because it just gave itself something you can reference. And this goes back to what you mentioned earlier, where you code something and it sort of forgets. Well, the Claude MD file is how it's going to always remember things. And you can actually give it a command. I didn't cover this yesterday, but if you give it a hashtag command, hashtag means remember this. So you can say like, hey, that was great. Like the thing we just fixed, hashtag remember to always do that.
Wow.
And it's going to put that in the Claude MD file. And then every time a new prompt is given, it's going to reference that and be like, oh, right, you wanted me to remember to always, format it this way, or, put a joke at the end or whatever.
Right.
Have it do whatever you want. So this was an example I shared where I had 10 agents working at one time. This was more of a, can it do it than an, is this necessary? But you can see it's got a generic coder, a backend dev, a mobile dev, a system architect. That's pretty interesting. It's cool. Somebody, it's got an agent analyzing the code to make sure things are going well, and then a tester. So this is something that as a developer, I'm just too lazy to do on my own, is writing unit tests and making sure that the things that I add to my project don't break existing functionality. I'm sure everybody's been through that, right? Like, especially when you're doing LLM based coding, it'll just come through and just knock all the pieces off the table to make that one. And you're like, dude, this was working. So another pro tip, always make sure that you are creating commits. If you get your app to a working state and you're about to try something experimental, or even like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to add this, AI API call, and I have no idea if this is going to work, create a commit, and that way you have a fallback. And we can talk about that if you want. Sorry, it's whining in the background. So yeah, it's as simple as like, you can tell Claude Code, hey, create a commit. I want you to create a commit. You could even build hooks in if you wanted to, where you say, hey, but every time we complete a feature, create a commit. I haven't gotten that crazy about it yet, but I do try and just keep that in mind. So, but yeah, so it'll write.
That's super powerful right there, what you just said, because I was wallowing through that right now.
Yeah.
That everything was working,
Yep.
Google sign-in, authentication, and now I've spent the better half of 2 days fixing the Google sign-in because
And it's not just you. Like, you go through X and you'll have, this is sort of the, I don't want to call it a misconception, because it's not a misconception. It's absolutely dead on. It's just avoidable. So
yeah.
when I first started using Cursor, I would be like, oh my God, I one-shotted this whole feature, right? And then I'd say, oh, but I don't like the CSS. I don't like the styling on this. And he would wipe it out and write the whole thing again. And now I've got a worse version of it, or it doesn't work or whatever. And I was like, this worked. Like, so it was this like push-pull relationship where you're always trying to get it to do something else without breaking everything it had already done. So I think the models have gotten considerably better since then. I don't even know what I was using back then, but I still think, like, as somebody who's building something, setting those milestones that you can revert back to is an invaluable safety net. It's incredible, because you can literally just be like, this is terrible. And again, you don't have to be a Git expert. You can tell Claude, hey, roll back to the previous commit, and it'll handle that for you.
So everything, Git is like the brain, but you want to be able to get that onto your local machine.
Yeah.
And you want to work out of your local machine and make changes. And then when you're like, oh, this looks great, this works because I'm testing it on my local machine, then you would do a commit, right?
Yeah. So if you've got things in a good state, and have Claude create the commit for you, because it's going to give you a very detailed list of the last things that it's done. My commit messages have historically been like, things are working, about to add security audit, don't want to break the app. That's so that if I go back later, I can be like, okay, this is where things were working. Because yeah, I've definitely run into that where I'm like, okay, I've built an app. It's cool. I want to launch it. It's pretty common that vibe coded apps have security issues in them, because a lot of times we as developers don't know what we don't know. And, API keys get leaked. There's things like cross-site scripting. So you need to like sanitize input text, things like that. And you don't have to know all of that. ask Claude to do it. And they've actually just added a feature.
Yep.
It's a slash command. I don't know if it's security audit or security check, but it's slash security something. I'd have to find that. But create a commit before that, because it's going to go through and rewire a lot of things to be correct in terms of security,
Mm.
but it may lock things down so much that, like, oh, now there's, row level access policy issues for your database, and things that were being fetched before are no longer being fetched. You should keep those security changes and move forward through the fixes. But let's say you went so far down a path that you're like, look, this is a mess. I'm going to, like you said, I'm going to spend 8 hours just getting back to where I was. I would say take what went wrong, roll back to a previous commit, and adjust your prompt. Now, knowing like, hey, this is the path we went. It's almost like you got to see the future a little bit, right? You go down the path, everything breaks. You kind of know how you got to where it was broken. And so you're going to come back and say, hey, Claude, like, first off, revert to previous commit. Second, here's my new prompt with some more detailed instructions on how to avoid that problem we just ran into, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of get a chance to do it again.
That makes sense.
Much time into it.
And I'm going through that and experiencing the growing pains. But yeah, it seems like, I think you get to the point when you're building something ambitious and there's a lot of, APIs you're integrating and lots of features. I feel like this is the next step in the evolution process for vibe coders out there. And, I expected Bolt to complete this project, but then I was coming up with new ideas for the project. And I was like, you know what? I think this is going to be a little bit too big for using Bolt or Lovable. And I like in 10 days in, I'm in there. I mean, it even pops up every once in a while, the project's too big. It
Right.
just tells me flat out, like, it's going to have a hard time making
Yeah.
small changes. Like in your slide there, it just gets to the point where it's like having to analyze everything takes 200,000 tokens just to respond. So it just,
And you're going to hit limits
next
more
step.
quickly. You're going to get more fragmented results. Like the results won't be as good. So what's funny is it's crazy that in 10 days you're like, hey, I've already hit the ceiling here, right? I've maxed this thing out. And I think you're right. I don't have experience with Bolt. I've used Replit a little bit. So I don't know how they all compare in terms of what their context windows are, but I do think you're going to get to a point where those are meant to be introductory tools to this world, right? So you can you can spin up a landing page. You can do a landing page, you can do database integration, you can do authentication, you can get the workings of an app and get it in there. But once you get beyond that, and I've been following your YouTube, and some of the stuff you're adding is great, but you're starting to get to where you're like, okay, I need something more advanced than this, right? I'm trying to add like multiple vision models to look at an image and give me, and
Yeah.
you're going far enough off the beaten path that Bolt is like, yeah, it's not really what, this was designed to do. This is designed to like, hey, do you want to spin up a quick, chatbot or a landing page or whatever? Perfect. So I think they're great tools for getting your feet wet. And I think this is the next evolution. I posted something the other day. I said that to me, the evolution goes like Replit, Cursor, Claude Code.
Yep.
All right. So eventually you're going to want to be in the weeds and just sort of own this experience. And I'm telling you, like, once you get over that intimidation factor, you're like, I can just keep asking this thing to make itself better. So we'll get to that here in just a sec. So this is an example of a slash command. So you could have something where you say, hey, I'm in a good spot, right? Slash review my app. And review my app would be something you would have gone in and said, hey, Claude, I want you to create a slash command that called review my app. And whenever I call this, I want you to do an SEO pass. I want you to do a security pass, and I want you to do a UI review. And these would all be sub agents that would specialize in these tasks. It's going to call each of these and say, okay, is your site optimized for SEO? Is your site optimized security? Is it up to date on security standards? And you can even have it. This one's really cool. I saw somebody on YouTube do this where they set up Playwright to take a screenshot of their app and pass it back and then grade it against a rubric. And then
Yep.
it would continue that loop until it gave itself an A+. and it was just based on design standards that they had laid out beforehand. So you can say, hey, that AI or that UI you made, it's okay, but it's not an A plus, right? And you could probably even ask, you could probably say, hey, Claude, what's an A plus design? Great. Store that in a markdown file. And then now, as part of my review slash command, I want you to go through a loop and keep iterating on the UI until it gets an A plus. So let's make sure all of our alignment's correct, all of our little animations and micro interactions are all correct. Um, so you can really get pretty dialed in terms of a workflow. And again, here's your output. So
In far as like the SEO specialist, 2 podcasts ago, Greg had on the Startup Ideas podcast had the boring marketer on, and for the SEO specialist, that blew my mind. So you can eventually have your site ranking, like locally at least.
Yep. And there are MCPs for that. I've actually followed another video that the boring marketer did where he talks about I think the company is just called Data for SEO. And they have an MCP that you can hook up to. And we can cover what an MCP is if you feel like that's within the scope of this conversation. And it will basically go out and do complexity research and find keywords. And then it will use the Data for SEO MCP to go look at keyword search volume, competitor analysis. They call them like keyword difficulty rankings. So if you pick, Chinese restaurant, the difficulty rating is going to be very high because that's a very generic word. If you say vegan Chinese restaurant near the San Francisco, bridge or what, I don't know, whatever, then now you're getting much more specific and it's going to say, okay, this is search volume for that. The keyword difficulty is a lot lower, which means you're going to have an easier time ranking higher. So yeah, I mean, it gets way beyond code. Honestly, if you really want this to be the sort of Uber solution for running a business as a solopreneur, or even as somebody who's trying to just, you work for a larger company, you're trying to speed up processes or make things more repeatable. Uh, I honestly think that this goes so far beyond just how to use it to output code. So we're focused today on, hey, you're a vibe coder, you're graduating from sort of a beginner level tool into something more advanced, but it can be your marketing specialist, it can be your SEO specialist, it can be an email campaign manager. I mean, like you could have this thing look at your Supabase users, look at their usage of your app, segment that audience into groups that need different types of communications, and then automatically email those segments with different content based on, do you need a nudge to sign up? Do you need a promo because we've analyzed and said you might, be a high risk for churn?
Yeah.
You could really set this up to help you run your whole business.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like, okay, at what point does it become too much for you to hold in your head? And honestly, I think you could have separate Claude instances where you're like, hey, you are my marketing department. You are my sales department. You are my HR department. Like you can really set this up to handle any number of tasks. So we're using it for coding, but it's really just a window to an LLM, right? So it's a window to that AI intelligence and getting back answers. But then you add in tools like research and screenshots and database access, Stripe access.
Yeah.
You can really start to make you can empower them to do a lot. And I think getting used to it the way you're kind of exploring it is smart because there's a trust level there of, I'm going to give you access to my database. Are you going to wipe out my entire database?
It's a little scary. Yeah.
Well, so Supabase recommends that their MCP they use in read-only mode. I recommend that as well for at least a couple days while you see what it does. I've gotten to a point where I'm like, yeah, I trust you. I'm going to say you can have write access as well, because to me the convenience is like, oh, I just want this. Now I haven't been burned yet, so that I could give a different talk if one day I get burned and my database gets deleted. I might change my tune, but this is something I touched on just a little bit earlier. Just ask Claude. Replace Claude with whatever LLM you're using. Just ask. So the biggest tool at our disposal right now is the ability to, on demand, get any information you want, right? That's kind of the revelatory moment of these LLMs is we can now, I use Google Gemini Deep Research to do deep dive custom articles on any topic I want. And I'm like, that's the most empowering thing ever. Like this, it's crazy to me. So keep in mind that just because you're now in this terminal window, you can just keep asking, like, hey, add me a slash command. Hey, what is a slash command? First off, like, I keep hearing about slash commands. Explain it to me. Let Claude explain it. That sounds awesome. How can I use those in my project? Let it review your project and say, oh, you know what? You might benefit from the slash command that does XYZ. Like, that sounds great. Can you write that for me? Of course it can. So it's just a conversation where you're teasing out of it, what can you do that's even cooler? Let it explain it to you and then say, yeah, I'll have that. Like, I'll take the thing you just described. That sounds great. So that's how I've done slash commands, sub agents. I gave an example here where I had the hook that plays the sound when my tasks are completed. Right. And I was like, I don't know, like, can you just do that for me? And it's like, sure. And then I have to restart it. But now when my things are done, I get a little notification. So that's a really simple example. But
This is yeah, this is pretty I've been in this space for since the beginning of the year, just as from the outside in, seeing it happen, and we're really at a point where the trending word is agentic AI, right? AI that works by itself. And I really feel like now with Claude Code subagents, N8N doing amazing things, we are there. Like we're entering the agentic AI
I think,
paradigm, right?
right. So I would say right now, the way I would describe it is fragilely available. It is available. You can do it. You can one shot an entire app. It's going to get more and more fragile the more complex it gets. But the fact that it's possible is like, we're right there. And then you mentioned NAN, which is funny. I've actually considered, could I put in a hook to Claude Code that makes a call to NAN, triggers an automation, and returns me the result? Right. So like now you've got Claude Code's typical, workflow, but at any point in that workflow, you could go trigger as complex an automation as you want and have a whole research phase that pulls down, the latest tweets on a topic and ranks them based on virality and, does a whole bunch and then returns that and then just proceeds to the next step in Claude Code. So from your terminal, you see nothing, but you could get into where you're saying, hey, every time you get to this part in this, this phase of the development cycle, trigger a full NAN automation. Or I think you could go the other way. I think you could have NAN trigger Claude Code headless instances and say part of my NAN automation is to have it custom create a component for me right now and return it to me. So we talked, or it's been mentioned, we're kind of heading into this like software on demand age. And I think you're going to start to see things where a website doesn't necessarily have a predefined component for something. A user has a need, and the website will then go create that component and return it. And we're not going to have a predefined UI where you must follow this user journey in order to get to here. You're going to come to a website and it's going to be a chat box. You're going to say, hey, I need to update my membership. I need to, see my billing. Yeah. And it's going to create an interface for you right there. Now, some of those will be predefined and saved, but if not, it's not going to go, oh, sorry, I don't have that. So we're going to see things where it's like, hey, make a call out to something like a Claude Code agent. It's going to operate fully autonomously and return you back, a piece of content that the user can interact with. So I don't think we're quite at that point, but we're seeing these inklings of that. And I think we're close. We're really close. And so this I touched on just a second ago, very briefly. What about things that aren't code, right? So Claude Code is essentially an extensible way of talking to an LLM. It's not just how do I get, a React Native component or whatever. That is one thing that it's capable of. But, you go to ChatGPT, you ask it questions, you're going to say, hey, help me come up with the recipe for this or whatever. This could be that. What if you had a recipe engine that got feedback from top chefs? Right? So you say, hey, I want you to be Gordon Ramsay. I want you to be Anthony Bourdain. I want you to be Guy Fieri. I want sub-agents of all of these guys. And then I say, okay, I'm thinking about putting together a recipe for sourdough bread with jalapenos, whatever. You could have the top personalities in that space review your recipe and say, hey, you know, it would be awesome. You know, Anthony Bourdain says you should add a little bit of nutmeg to that because like he tried that in this other recipe. It's going to be great. And that's a weird example, but I love using weird examples because I want people to start thinking about how else can you use this, right? We're sitting on this agent. You know, you use the word agentic, and it's agentic for coding, but it's just an agent that we happen to be used for coding, happen to be using right now for coding.
Mm.
So, you know, you could have a car mechanic agent that like, hey, my car's making a funny noise, you know, it's maybe you've got a Toyota Tundra specific agent. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there's wacky stuff. Some of the examples I gave here are kind of intentionally funny. Like, first off, I put my name in every category.
Yes, of course.
But this one was like, what if you had a Willy Wonka agent? And I know that's ridiculous. I know it is. But I want people to think in terms of like, get outside of even what you're already thinking of. Like, oh, I could have, you know, I use Alex Ramosi as an example. He comes up a lot in the startup world, small business world. He's very popular in terms of like how to structure offers and how to get sales and leads. So he's an easy personality to target. I summarize his views, his systems, and review my landing page against Alex Hormozzi's, you know, criteria.
Wow.
Give me feedback, right? Greg Eisenberg, you know, we all in our community, we follow Greg. So, hey, have Greg's input on my app and, you know, am I on the right track? One of my favorites that I've used recently is my Rick Rubin agent. From this sort of like hippy dippy, like, hey man, like what would be the ideal use case or the ideal user experience for this app?
Right.
They come in, I want them to have that like Rick Rubin Shangri-La moment of like Zen where they, oh my God, this app is perfect. It just suits me and I don't know why. So
Mhm.
have somebody like that who's just like a renowned creative look at your app.
Yeah.
You know, I again threw in Leonardo da Vinci. I have to imagine there's enough information out there on him that you could have your agent build a profile that represents his kind of thinking, right? So it is crazy. Think about Willy Wonka. If you're strolling through your app, how do you introduce these moments of whimsy and delight? And
Right.
you know, a user touches something and they're like, "Wow, that was really a magical experience. That's cool." And you know, I'm using everything towards like how it relates to an app, but I honestly think you start thinking about this in terms of what other areas of my life could I use guidance or
Mhm.
feedback or, you know, finances,
Right.
exercise. Like, what if you could make a thing with the top fitness influencers
Yep.
and have them collaborate and give you a workout plan? That's pretty cool, you know? So the
Yeah.
stuff has me really jazzed
I
up.
love it. This is the next step. So would it essentially be another agent, let's say a Rick Rubin agent, or how does that fit into the workflow?
Yeah, so I typically have been creating these as sub agents that I can just call on a project. So I think I did not cover this. Give me one sec. I've got a little section for this. So there are three levels when you're talking about how these work. You've got global, and this is for slash commands, hooks, and sub agents. You've got the global, which is this is available to anytime you open up Claude Code, it's going to be available. You've got things at the project level, which is something you're going to maintain and check into your GitHub repo. So let's say you and I were both working on Easy Flip and you created a series of sub agents that make sense. That's going to be at the project level. You're going to check those in. And then if I check out your code, I'm going to have those
Mhm.
agents as well, because we as a team have decided this is a good subset of sub agents to have for our project.
Cool.
And then at local, this does not get saved to the project. It's still at the project level, but it's for me personally at my development environment. Maybe I really like for it to play a whistle noise when it's done, you know, something silly, and that would annoy you. So this is only local to me. So each one gets more specific and overrides the previous, right? So global is going to be for everybody. So I have my Rick Rubin agent as a global agent because I want him to be able to review any project that I'm taking a look at.
Mhm.
If I'm building a mobile app, I might have a React Native specialist agent that's an agent for that project. And if I'm doing something specific to my project, I might have an agent locally that just, you know, is literally only for me in my development environment. I work by myself, so I don't have to worry about that. But if you were to start building out a team, you would do things at like a project and a global level, and then independent developers can do local. Um, And so, yeah, I create subagents for the people that are of interest to me. So I've actually created a roundtable. I'd have to go look and see who's in it because I had Claude, which is also, again, all of
Nice.
my answers always go back to I'm already sitting on the tool that'll fix it for me, right? So I say, hey, Claude, create me a group of subagents that would be the end all be all roundtable in terms of like SaaS applications, right? So a security specialist, a marketing specialist, a branding specialist, a positioning specialist, like whatever.
Yeah.
Create me a list of 10 people that if you could get them all in a room, you couldn't afford the consultation fee, right? It would be astronomical. And now when I'm at a point in my app, I say, have the roundtable review my app. And I'm going to get a combination of perspectives from all of those different people. And when I say people, obviously I'm referring to some summarization of what they're known for. So it needs to be something where, you can have your agent go out and be able to find information. I couldn't say, give me the Bo Johnson agent that's going to give me feedback because it's going to be like, oh, well, I'm not sure who Bo Johnson is. So,
Mhm.
I'll just make something up. But
Yeah.
figure if
Yeah.
there's a public profile out there,
Right.
have it go summarize that and build into a markdown file. It's crazy.
So, okay, that was my next question.
Yeah.
So the sub agent of Alex Ramosi would then go and research who Alex Ramosi is, and then create whatever knowledge base in a markdown file within your project so it can refer back.
Yeah, and I've only asked Claude to go do that, but imagine like you wanted some more control over that. Like Alex Hormozy has different systems that they follow, different, he's great at systemizing things that you can apply to your business to, you know, increase leads, increase sales,
Right.
their Grand Slam offer is a big thing. So like take a look at my pricing page. Tell me what kind of offer I could give my users, my clients that's going to inspire them to sign up, right? And it's
Right.
gonna look at it and go, oh, okay, yeah, you're offering Easy Flip AI, right? So boom, you give them 100 free credits off the top, and it's like, whoa, that's cool, and it costs you nothing because you're gaining a customer.
Yeah.
So the actual usage with the data is pretty small. Um, it's gonna say create a quick online course for how to flip and how to make a profit flipping
Mhm.
and give that a value. Say, hey, this is $1,000 course I would charge you for. It's a 2-day weekend. It would be $1,000 to attend. I'm giving it to you for free today if you sign up, right?
Hmm.
And so it's going to help you think of those types of things that are going to have the psychological triggers to encourage sales and encourage conversions.
Mhm.
And then that's one piece of it. So you take that concept and you abstract that out to like, okay, well, what else could you use help on?
Yeah.
Copywriting, SEO, um,
Right.
image generation,
Right. Yeah.
anything.
There's so much, and we can probably do a whole episode on that, but it's cool because yeah, you got to think outside the box. I never even thought of that, and just having almost like a council,
Yeah.
from some of the leading experts in that field. Yeah,
Dude, you
to,
you
to
could
get,
create a vibe coding coach and you could say, hey, I'm stuck right now. Have the vibe code coach look at my app and give me a recommendation on what I should do next. Right?
jeez,
Just whatever problem you're faced with. If you think an LLM could answer it for you, giving it access to your code base is that next level of like, you could, if you go ask ChatGPT, I was watching your most recent video where you're taking your bolt.new code and you're putting the errors into ChatGPT, and then you're trying to take the code that comes back out and put that back into Bolt.
yeah,
But by doing it this way, it is already immersed in your code base and can see everything. So it has a full picture, right? When you're giving this to the ChatGPT chat window, it only has the context of this is the error.
right,
It doesn't know how the app is also built. So it's going to give you its best guess.
yeah, yeah,
Let's say there are 5 ways to do something. It's just going to pick the first one that comes to mind and say, hey, like, I don't know, this should fix it. But it doesn't know that that would only fix it if you'd also made these other 5 decisions, right?
right,
So putting this inside your code base and saying, hey, now you know everything I know.
right, yeah,
Fine. So I do this all the time with Claude Code where I go paste an error and it gives me, it's so confident. It's like, absolutely, we fixed it. This is incredible. And I go test it. And I go, same error. And he goes, oh, yeah, of course. I found the issue. Now it's fixed.
Right.
Same error. And so what I'll ask you is I'll say, hey, slow down, do a comprehensive analysis of the all of the code base that surrounds this problem. We're focusing here and we keep trying to fix a problem. It keeps coming back. There's something more systemic here that's causing that. So being able to tell it like, hey, one, pull back your view a little bit, look broader. Two, assign sub agents to even troubleshoot this, right? Like the same way they can output better code, they're also going to understand better. That's a React Native problem. Put a React Native agent on it whose job is to specialize in that area, and also have a code analyzer that's going to go through and try and find the problem and then assign the problem to the React Native code agent. You know what I mean? Like get these guys working in tandem. And so I find that gets me unstuck a lot, is especially with React Native. I don't know if you've done anything with mobile yet. Uh, I'm experimenting with it now. I'm by no means an expert at it, but I find that a lot of times it's like there's compatibility issues with different libraries. Like you tried to put in an animation library that was for React, not for React Native. They don't go together. And that's the type of thing too that I can be like, hey, remember in the future that if you're going to add an animation, don't use this library. Use the one that we just found out that works. And then it's going to store that kind of as a lesson learned, right? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, dude, it's pretty wild. I get real excited about it. It's almost like overwhelming to try and think about all the things it can do. So I would say for somebody like yourself getting into it, this is all meant to be exciting and cool. Don't try and do it all at once. Don't try and dive in and like over complicate what it's doing. At the end of the day, it's a chat window. Ask it for things that you're asking right now, and just it's going to be better because it can see all of your code, right? And then from there, ask it like, hey, how can we speed this up, right? Like, and it'll go, oh, I can make sub agents that work in parallel. It's like, it's almost like I wish you was already done that, but it doesn't, it doesn't have that level of awareness. So you just ask it and say, hey, how can we speed up this development process? How can we make this process less bug intensive, like less bug laden? And it'll say, oh, I could probably create like a unit testing agent. You say, yeah, that'd be great. Create a unit testing agent. Like, do it.
Yeah. So with it, let's just use what I'm going through right now. If I have downloaded my project files from GitHub and I'm ready to start with Claude Code, maybe you're watching this right now and you're in the same position I am. What would be the next step? Would be like obviously installing Claude Code
Yep.
and then giving it access to my files and then start analyzing them to start optimizing the workflow and
Yeah.
all the sub agents. Is that like the next step?
Yeah. Honestly, the first thing I would do is I would open up the project. Open up Claude inside the project and do an init /init.
Yeah.
And that's going to create a local to that project Claude MD file. So Claude has the global MD file, which is its general instructions of, hey, how to be Claude, what to do. In that project, it's going to then map out what it can learn about your project, and it's going to have more localized context. So start with that /init, because now any commands you ask it are within the context of this code base. So start there. I would absolutely say that the next thing you could like just leapfrog to without even having to fully understand is say, and analyze my project and create as many sub agents as you need that will help speed up the development workflow, fix bugs, whatever. It's going to give you back a list of what it thinks. Just give it the go ahead and say, yeah, create those. So you'll then have to close out the instance and open it again, because once it's created those, they're not pulled in until it loads on when the app initializes.
Right.
So if you try that and then they don't work, you probably just need to remember to cancel out, like close it and then open it back up.
Okay.
But dude, that would be enough right there. That would be enough to get you so much farther along than I think, honestly, even like your typical vibe coder is. You now have an agent or an army of sub agents that are going to specialize and work in parallel. So your work is going to be faster and more accurate. I will say, let me caveat that by saying the token usage is the same or less because of the managed context windows, but you're going to go through it faster because you've got 10 agents working at the same time If each of those uses 60,000 tokens, you've gone through 600,000 tokens.
Yeah.
Now, my feeling on that is you would have gone through those 600,000 tokens anyway. It just would have taken you an hour instead of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But Claude limits by 5-hour windows. So when you're saying, so it's almost like developing slowly, you're less likely to hit your contact or like your limit, your usage limits. By doing this quickly, you're going to get your results faster, but you're also much more likely to hit that time boxed window limit. So I started off on the $20 plan, and I was hitting the limits for that immediately. I did a $100 a month plan, which is 5x the usage.
Right.
I'm a really heavy user of this. I mean, I'm normally doing 2 apps at a time. You normally have multiple terminal windows open, and each of those apps is running subagents. And I was finding that I would hit it anywhere from 2 to 3 hours into the 5. I don't know why they do 5-hour windows, but it's kind of nice because by comparison with Cursor, you can use your entire monthly allocation in a day and be like, well, now I've got 29 days of free usage before I can get back to using like the premium models. So I kind of like the way they do it. It's a little bit more micromanagey, but you're way less likely to accidentally shut yourself down for a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, after a couple times of going, oh man, I've got 3 hours to wait till I can use this again. I was like, I'm just going to bump it up. So I'm on the $200 plan. And again, it just depends on where you're at in your journey. It depends on where you're at in terms of what you expect to get out of this. The amount that I'm using it, I think $200 a month is a steal. And I realized that's purely contextual. That's purely objective of like, or yeah, subjective, is that to me, that's a deal. If you're trying to get the most you can out of a free plan and you're like $200 a month, that's insane. You're probably right. Like, don't do it. But just know that these tips and tricks fall somewhere in that spectrum of the more you leverage them, the faster you're going to hit those limits. But again, it's not more expensive. So I want to be clear on that. You see a lot of stuff online where it's like, oh, this model's expensive, that model's expensive. You're using the same amount, you're just allowed to do it way faster. So, you be prepared that you could hit limits. For somebody like yourself, you're trying to build a profitable app that you're going to put on the web. I think you're getting thousands and thousands of dollars worth of development effort for $200 a month. To me, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
But if you're just, if you're just tinkering with this stuff and you want to see if you can make a to-do list app or, a solitaire game or whatever, then yeah, $200 a month isn't going to be worth the cost for you. But you'll need to figure out then where you're comfortable at price-wise and what your expectations are in terms of what you get out of it. I found Cursor's pricing to be more frustrating. I don't think it was any more expensive or cheaper, but I would go, oh man, I'm on a roll. I'm cruising. And it'd be like, oh, you've hit your limit, and it'll reset literally like 28 days from now. And I'm like, that's
crazy.
So
That's crazy.
And that was only, I had $100 limit, so I could have bumped it up. I figure I would have hit that in another 2 days.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, I think that just giving the basic concepts and understanding of what Claude offers to a person that has an idea but doesn't know what to do with it, I think that starting off with Bolt or Lovable is like a good step. That's what I did. Build the landing page, the workflow, the sign-ins, the Supabase, and you go connect all that.
I think somebody like you too, you realize what you're capable of, right? So having a tool like that gets you over that hump of what you can actually do, even as a non-technical person, is worth the upfront cost because it's liberating. You're like, oh, I'm just a dude, right? I'm just a dude at his desk. Like, but now in 2025, I can be a full stack developer. Like that's pretty wild. So yeah, I think if that's a toe dip in the water for people to check it out, absolutely do it. Flex those free plans as much as you can. V0 is great. Lovable, Replit, Bolt. I mean, there's so many of them out there. Just go try them out. See if something, really just tickles you. And it's like, oh man, like I like this idea. I want to take it further. I want to push it. And push it till like you do. Push it till it's going, hey, you know what? Like this project is too big, or, you've now learned what you need of your app and you know when you can't get it. So you've gotten to a phase where you're like, okay, I now know what I'm not getting out of this. So I now know what I want to get out of the next two.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, the thing that I kind of confuses me is when using Bolt, it's not like working on a local level.
Mm-hmm.
It's because now it's telling me it can't access files, it can't edit ENV files. I can do that. So what am I accessing when I'm using Bolt? Is it this all in the cloud or?
Yeah, that I'm not 100% sure. I don't actually know where they store things. My guess is that's part of like the payment is
Mhm.
that they're storing files for you. Because they can't be live referencing. I mean, it can be stored in GitHub. I can't be making like live changes back and forth between that. So yeah, my guess is if I'm gonna 100% speculate, is that they're pulling that down, spinning up some sort of virtual machine that's gonna host your code,
Yep.
letting you interact with that virtual machine via the LLM,
Yep.
making changes. That's how they can host them and preview them. And then when you're done, that VM probably just shuts down to free up the resources for another user. Again, 100% speculation, but that's what would make sense to me is that they just give you allocated resources on a server that's going to run your code for you and let you interact with it. But
But okay.
which also then you don't really know what your what does your usage look like, right? Like what's a project that's too big? You're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
you're probably going, I mean, my project is growing, but I feel like it's a fairly reasonable expectation for an app to like grow to the level that you're at. And you're like, okay, well then like, is my code out of control? Is it too big? Like, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think taking ownership of it is that next step of saying, okay, I'm comfortable. I've gotten started, but I now know there's more that I need to do that this tool can't do for me. Pull it down and start tinkering with it.
Yeah.
It's low stakes, man. Like all of this stuff is such low stakes at this point that for $20 a month, you can get enough credits to just experiment with things, see what's out there. And if something catches fire, then it's a no brainer. You put a little bit more money on it.
Mhm.
But if it doesn't, then just have fun. Like
Yeah.
tinker with it. Make mobile games. I made a mobile game this morning using GPT-5 because I just
Right.
wanted to see what it could do. And I was like, make me a side scroller with power ups and obstacles that I have to hop over. And it went through a couple bug iterations, and then I had a fun game. And I was like, this is silly. Like, I just made, you know, a pretty basic game, but like a few years ago, this would have been an App Store smash. You know?
Oh yeah, 100%. We're in at a time right now where even just a year ago, I had the idea of what we're building now, but I didn't have the access to the tools. Like, what am I going to use? I know there's cursor and all that, and I didn't want to do it because it looked intimidating. And I'm just like, I have no idea. So I even hired a developer to use I think it's called Bubble.
Yeah,
Bubble
Bubble.
us to build it out. And then I was like, all right, let's do this. And just was hesitant because it's like, you know what? What if it doesn't work? This is going to end up costing thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars for this idea. And I just kind of put it on the back burner.
Well, and I think also too for somebody like yourself, you don't feel empowered to do anything about it, right? So you're like, okay, I've spent $10,000 having a developer get me to this point, and now there's a bug or there's an issue. So I can either suck it up and throw another $10,000 at this and hope we get to where I want to be, or I have to eat that sunk cost and bail on the project, right? So when I say this is low stakes, I mean like you're putting in, let's say you're doing $200 a month. In by comparison, the stakes are so low and you own it. So you're going, hey, like I can work through this bug. And when I'm done, I feel more empowered the next time to work through the next bug and through the next bug. And you're more learning the development process as opposed to the syntax. So you don't necessarily have to know how, how a Python method is structured.
right.
You need to know, like, okay, I want Python to handle this because it's got some library that can crunch numbers or do machine learning or whatever.
Mhm.
But you're going to learn more about, you're a process overseer now, and
Yes.
you can just implement. You're going to have agents that can implement for you. And honestly, I think we're fully democratizing the coding skill set itself. And you're going more into, can you ideate can you iterate on an idea
Yeah.
and continue pushing it to let it to evolve it.
Mhm.
You know, and using these tools in a creative way, I think it's going to be the lever, sort of the moat to separate yourself from like the dabblers on GPT,
Yep.
which is great. I'm not in any way just diminishing that. I think that these tools are incredible,
Mhm.
but to get to like, oh, I'm doing stuff that people aren't doing yet.
Mhm.
I think that's where you can differentiate. Think outside the box and ask you to do stuff that people aren't doing yet,
Yeah.
and
We
you're ahead of the curve.
we are in that paradigm shift. You never know when you're in that shift until the change has already happened. And I just where I live and, kind of my friend group and everything, I they ask, "Oh, what are you up to?" Because they know we resell on eBay and we do live shows and stuff. And I was just so pumped with AI, and I just see kind of their eyes glaze over. So like it's very we're still really early,
Yeah.
and
My wife is very tolerant of these conversations, but she's not interested. She's like, that is great. If you're, it's like talking to a kid. She's like, you're having fun. See, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
And I do at times feel like this, sort of crazy Nostradamus, like, guys, the future is here, like, but I genuinely believe, I said this many times, that this is bigger probably than the advent of the internet. And I know that's like a ridiculous thing because people are like, what? The internet? It was like the most world transforming technology ever. I'm like, yeah, it was.
right,
And now you're literally going to have, I, like I said, I don't even think we can conceptualize yet the things that are going to become possible in the next 5 years.
right,
Another year from now, where are these large language models going to be? Right. Like in
insane,
the last year, they went from like, oh, that's cute, it can kind of code,
yeah,
to like, oh, people are building,
scary,
you know, multi-million dollar apps on this stuff. Like that's
yeah,
crazy. It
and
still takes a little bit of skill and a little bit of know-how to push it and get that.
yeah,
But consider too, we'll have this recursive loop of, we now have the tools to make the tools better, to improve the tools even faster, right? So it's like you can now use Claude Code to make the next Claude Code, and it's going to make it 10 times faster and better.
right, yeah.
It's great.
So it's cool, and it's cool talking to other people in the space like
Yeah.
yourself, just to know that I'm not the only one, and I'm fired up. I love this.
Dude, I love it too. I love your
Yeah,
enthusiasm. I've been watching your videos. And like I said, I love that you represent the non-technical crowd
yep,
that just wants to see what's possible, because I still think there's this stigma that like, oh, it's for the techies, right? It's for the uber nerds of the world to hop in there and to do this. But
right.
I would say it's the opposite. It's not making the gap larger, it's making the gap disappear. And I love that you are representing that and showing that to people that are like, hey, are you a person with an idea? Like,
There we are.
try it, push it,
Yeah,
see what happens.
yeah, and
Because
that's why I love the community. Yeah,
you don't have to mortgage your home, you don't have to do anything crazy. Just try it, put it out there,
yeah.
see how it does.
And then, yeah, absolutely. And to kind of just wrap it up with the things that you're building, where can people like follow you along? I'll put all your stuff linked down below, but
You're
yeah,
catching me unprepared there. I am awful. I'm on X at Brett Jutras, like just same first and last name. I'd say that's where I post the most things that I'm working on, that I actually just share status updates or screenshots of. Um, I've worked on so many disparate apps at this point that I don't have any one online presence that really represents any of this. So if anything takes off, I will happily create some social media around the brands that do well.
for sure.
But yeah, just to get my take on stuff, I would say that's where I share most of my development thoughts for projects I'm working on, um, thoughts on the landscape, the AI landscape in general. Yeah, that's probably the best spot.
Yeah, I mean, if you have questions, reach out. It's just like it's such an open community. It's like there's no reason to struggle by yourself because we're all kind of going through
And I get
something.
so excited to talk about this stuff. I'm always telling people, I'm like, I'm not, ask me anything you want. Shoot me a message, ask me a
Yeah,
question. To your point before, it's like, my friends and family don't want to talk about this.
yeah,
So if you have a question, oh, I'll be so excited to talk shop with you. So shoot me anything you want to know, or just share thoughts on something or whatever. Tag me in a post. I love it because I
absolutely.
can't get enough of this. And yeah, this is great.
So yeah, continue to just keep doing what you're doing. I'm gonna keep documenting the journey. There's gonna be more podcasts coming. We'll have to have you on it again. I mean, the space is moving so fast. If we have you on in a month from now, I can't imagine what's the new model that just got released.
Yeah, let me I'll tease just a little bit. The thing I want to work on this coming weekend or next week is I want to see if I can put GPT-5 into Claude Code through API access. So right now I love Claude Code as the tooling, but I don't want to be married to any one model. I want to be able to flop to whoever's the model du jour. And if GPT-5 is better, I want to figure out how to wire that into Claude Code's interface so I can, because really it's the tooling I like. And the LLM is great. Don't get me wrong. Opus 4.1 is spectacular. Sonnet's spectacular. But if GPT-5 is better, I don't want to have to wait for Claude to pass them. I want to be able to use whoever's the best. So I'm going to try and figure that out.
Yeah, I just saw a post this morning about it. It says Claude Code Pro Tip. The GPT-5 API price is ridiculously cheap.
Yeah.
Use the repo prompt MCP server and you can have Claude sending coding tasks to GPT-5. And I'm like, oh,
wow. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, just picture, like just go, in a perfect world, this would work like this. All right, then see if you can figure it out, because like the tools are there now, right? Just ask it. Just keep pushing it. So yeah.
Crazy. Well, I appreciate your time.
Following along. I love watching what you're building. I'm super excited. I'm rooting for you. And I can't wait to see some Claude Code start popping up on your channel.
My next video, my whole head of hair will be gray.
Hey, when my kids were born, I had no gray in the beard, so I feel you.
There we go. I appreciate it, Brett. Well, enjoy your weekend, guys. I hope you have a blessed weekend, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye. See you, bud.